Hey guys, wanted to make a video today about the importance of upgrading your water filtration system. So this is more of a slideshow than a video, but you see here on the screen the classic Camco Inline, screwed into the hose, screwed into the camper, RV water filter. Now we're going to get into some stuff here. I'll do my best to keep it short and not get too long with the science stuff. But it's important to understand, at least on the surface, some of the science stuff and what a micron is and how that micron rating is important, especially if you're somebody who drinks the water coming out of the campground faucet through your filter coming into your spigots and showers. It's really important if you consume this water. So the little RV water filter we see here has a micron rating typically of 50. They don't actually label, interestingly enough, they don't actually label these cartridges because there's so much variant in manufacturing. The quote-unquote filter aspect of this is it has a core of carbon to remove some chlorine and taste and things, gases. And then there's just like a fiberfill kind of packed around that cylinder of carbon. And depending on the factory, depending on the day, depending on the quality of the fiberfill, there is no guaranteed standard across the board with these. In general, they are presumed to be about 50 microns. Now you can buy a better one that in general are accepted to be 20 microns. But as you're about to see, 20 microns is horrible and is letting a lot of very bad things into your RV system, all of your lines, your water heater, not to mention in your faucets and in the water you're showering with, washing your hands with, possibly drinking. So let's first talk about a micron. You have to understand when they say a micron, what that means. So in this slide I have here, this is to give you a general idea. Then we have to get into specifics of 10 microns, 20 microns, so on and so forth. So if you start here on the left bottom, you see the ground coffee. As this goes around, the beach sand, table salt, human hair, pollen, the limit of human visibility, white blood cells, smoke, red blood cells, bacteria, and then that tiny yellow dot dead center on the bottom there is the equivalent of 1 micron. So if your filtration is equivalent to 1 micron, none of these things can pass through your water. Now let's get a little more specific with that. In this slide here, we see this really breaks it down across several different micron levels of filtration as well as types of filtration. So I have some lines I've kind of superimposed over this. So starting at the far right, the red line, and then moving left, it's the purple, the blue, the green. So starting far right, if you look down bottom of this graph, you see your micron increments. That's 50 microns. So if you buy one of those standard filters that are averaging on a good day 50 microns of filtration, if you start at the top there, we see there's still some fine sands able to pass through, some fine dust, cement dust, pulverized coal. What else? We have pollen can still fit through it. You're at that point where you're just filtering out like red blood cells or cystic fluid. A human hair can even possibly go through a 50 micron filter. So you buy the upgraded one, and we step down now to the purple line, 20. Okay, at 20, you're still getting that cystic fluid and red blood cells. So anything to the left of any given line that we're discussing, everything to the left is still getting through, if that makes it easier to understand this graph. As we move up, we're still letting pollens in, talc, plant spores, the coal, the cement dust, the fine dust. Now we're eliminating sand, but silt and clay are still getting through. So what I want to kind of get to here, and this is kind of where I live with my filtration system, and we're going to go over my specific system and how I have it set up here in a minute. So I have a pre-filter of 10 microns. So the blue line here you see is 10 microns. And yeah, you're still letting through some red blood cells if they exist, and some cystic fluids can possibly pass. We've now eliminated the pollens and the plant spores. What you're not seeing on this chart is rust. Rust really gets eliminated right around between 10 and 20 microns will filter out most rust out of water. So it'll go in orange and come out clear. And that's the big issue with campgrounds. Rust is one of the #1 things you want to look for. So like I said, my pre-filter, which is the 10-inch by 2.5-inch cylinder, is 10 microns. That's what I have filtering out most of the junk before I then go into my next cartridge. So, you see here, it's eliminating a lot of the stuff at like 20 or 10 microns. You're hitting some of those points where you're eliminating all plant pollutions, things like that. So then from there, I have a cartridge that's basically your carbon cartridge to clean up the chloride, the chemicals, the pesticides. Then my final cartridge, again, we're going to go specifics after this, but my final cartridge is a 1 micron block cartridge. So if you look at this green line here, you see 1 micron. So 1 micron is eliminating most bacterias, any type of blood cells, the cystic cells, the pollens, the plants, insecticides are mostly being eliminated at that point. The ground talc, I don't know why we'd have talc in our water, but you never know. If the well is in limestone, you could certainly have talc residue. The coal, the cement dust, the fine dust, the silt, all of that at 1 micron is pretty much gone. You're not really going to find anything below 1 micron for a water system, typically speaking. And if you do, it's going to drastically reduce your gallons per minute, which is something we're going to talk about as well. Now, just for the sake of why I have this up here, I've seen water filters and things that claim to remove viruses. So looking at this chart, I need you to understand something. At the top of this chart here to the right, you see it says particle filtration. So this is any filter that's dealing with some sort of a cloth, paper, polyester mesh, a pleated filter, a solid filter, any type of that white cloth-like papery material that's basically working as a catch net. It's catching these sediment particles as they pass through it. Viruses exist, if you look to the left of the chart here, I have it circled in orange, all the way down under ultrafiltration. So there is nothing paper, cloth, or polyester based that can catch a virus. A virus needs specific processes to remove it from water, whether it be chemical treatment, ultraviolet light, a series of really fine filtrations that would never allot any type of water flow through whatsoever. For that matter, I just, we're supposed to trust the science. So since we're talking science, I wanted to point out here, the N95 mask, which is the best mask allowed to the public that, that we have, filters at roughly 0.3 microns. So 1/3 of a micron. And if you look up, these are issued to people who deal with asbestos and paints and things like that. And if you look where the N95 is, if you trace up, the paint pigments, the asbestos is still actually passing through there. And if you look over to the viruses, we're also wearing masks to prevent virus infestations. The whole virus range is well smaller than the smallest particle the N95 can absorb. And if you look, I even have a little coronavirus molecule there. Coronaviruses, all type of virus molecules can vary, but there is a good number of coronavirus particles that are as small as 0.06 microns. So if you look at the virus range, anybody who sells you anything that's not either a reverse osmosis or some sort of ultraviolet light mechanism, no, don't ever buy into the sales pitch, because we're just in that time period now where it's the kind of sales pitch, the catchphrase, oh, this kills viruses, or this gets rid of viruses. There is no such thing as a water filter that's going to remove viruses. Just wanted to put that out there. As far as the other information involved with viruses, do with that what you will. So let's talk about some more specifics now. So we got an idea of what say the last filter is going to be a 1 micron. That's pretty much the best you're going to get and still have flow. So let's talk about gallon per minute. When you're researching filters, there's going to be a couple of ratings. First of all, dimensions, whether you're using the 4.5 by 10 or the 2.5 by 10 or 2.5 by 20, depending on your cartridges. I'll show you what I have here in a second. You're going to get your micron rating. Like I said, I like my pre-filter at 10 microns. I actually look for the largest micron filter on the carbon because the carbon cartridge is not there to filter for me. That's there. I want as much carbon as possible. So what'll happen is I'll put a picture up here of this is a 2-in-1 filter. So this is it's like a 5 micron carbon filter. So you see the outer layer of filtration and then the ring of carbon and then the little inner tube of filtration. So this can be a 2-in-1 if you only have the option to have one filter. Something like this would suit you. But for my personal needs, I want as much flow because it's usually the carbon filter that's going to really choke down your gallons per minute. And next thing you know, you're in the shower and it feels like it's sprinkling rain on you. I prefer one. The one I'll recommend in the links below is a 25 micron because there's very little filter material. It's a carbon block and it's going to have a much higher throughput. And of all 3 filters, that'll be the one. If you get one that's a filtering carbon, that'll choke down your gallons per minute. The one I just showed you that I bought and took apart, that has a gallons per minute of like 2, whereas the one I'm recommending has a gallons per minute of 10. Now, of course, that being said, you're talking, you know, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So across your filters, whatever filter has the lowest throughput is what you're going to be choked down to. So the ones I'm recommending here at the end of this video will be 5 gallons per minute, which is a pretty good flow rate. And then, of course, the charcoal one says like 10 gallons, but that's kind of irrelevant because it's the smallest one you have. So let's talk about my system. So you see here, I kind of built this little kind of thing. It sits in this little stand. Typically speaking, these systems will come in, you know, a variety of either a steel cage or you could buy very expensive brackets to mount to a wall if you weren't mobile, like if you were in a seasonal place, you would mount to the wall, which would make it real easy to use the little white wrench to service it and unscrew the things, change them, clean them, what have you. I built this. It's just simple and easy when I get to the campground. I store it in it so it stays upright. It won't fall over. I just take it out, sit it on the ground, and hook it up. When it comes time to service my filters or take them out to dry, so typically what I'll do is if we're camping for a weekend and it's going to be 2 weeks before we go anywhere again, I will literally open these all up, let them dry out. I'll take out the cartridges, rinse them off with a hose. That first skinny one will get chucked. They are very inexpensive and they're meant to be the throwaway. They're the things that save the rest of your filtration system. You let that get all the junk and you just toss it between uses. But I'll take it apart and I'll let them dry because if you just leave this in the belly of your rig, there's a chance you're going to start developing mold or algae or something in the compartment thing, and you really don't. That's something you don't want to get into. So I'll take them all apart, let them dry good. So here's what I have in my system. I have everything with quick connects. I'll link them below. By the way, one of my viewers, Chaz, who comments a lot, he actually pointed out, I guess he views on mobile, and on mobile they don't make it very obvious of how to get to the description of the video. So if you're ever watching a YouTube video and you hear them say, oh, links below, and you always scratched your head about how to get to the links. So under the video on your phone or on your tablet or what have you, there'll be the title of the video, and to the right of the title of this video or any video you're watching will have a small little kind of downward arrow like a wide V. If you click that, that's going to open up the description and that will have your links or whatever you need to access there. Why YouTube makes it difficult and kind of hides the descriptions, you know, I know they need that real estate for all their ads and nonsense, but yeah, that's how you get to the links. So if you ever hear me or anybody say links are below and you've kind of wondered where below, if you look, you have to hit that little arrow to open up the description to see the links. Now that's only on mobile. On a computer, it's all listed properly. So back to what I was saying. So the first filter I have coming into my system here, I have my 0G hose comes up. I have a shut off, so I can shut it off right there if I want to do something at the filter. Then I use the Gorilla Quick Connects to go in. All my water supplies, even my black tank flush, everything uses the Gorilla Quick Connects. Of all the Quick Connects that I've seen, I've gone to Home Depot and Lowe's. I like these the best. They seal better. They work better. They have more of a throughput, like a wider hole to let the water through. Again, I'll link these below. I have no affiliation with them. They're just a product that I used and I love, and that's all I use now. They're not interchangeable with one you may buy at Home Depot. So if you are getting a few, understand you have to get enough for everything you're using, because you can't have the one you picked up at Lowe's and stick it in the one you got from Amazon or directly from Gorilla. So we go into my housings. Now I have a 3-housing unit. Now my particular unit is a HydroPure is the brand. I would not recommend anybody go out and buy a HydroPure. We got this at a particular campground that we frequent down the Jersey Shore. It's called Driftwood 2. Terrible, terrible, terrible water. Dark orange with rust. It comes out of a well. It's been there since the 60s. And it's not great water. So they have a lot of permanent kind of like module, almost park models in there for seasonal people. And this is what they sell at the RV center up the street that they own, Driftwood RV Center, for the people who live there permanently. So the HydroPure system is a great system. And what they're most known for is, you have that 10 micron pre-filter. You have what's called the metal trap. It's the charcoal filter that goes in the middle, and it traps lead, and on several other metals. It's a blend. It's your carbon block, but it's a blend of other things. And then you go through your final sediment filter of 1 micron. Now, why I say I would never tell anybody to get that is the blue housings, the brackets to mount them to a wall, the metal trap replacement filter are all incredibly expensive. If you were living full-time in a situation where you were living off of that well water and you were drinking this water or cooking with this water, I would say absolutely. I wouldn't spend a penny less. Go and buy that $121 charcoal insert. Go and buy the $50 sediment insert. Absolutely. Spend the money and get it. Because it does more than most of these filtration systems do. I don't know if you're a part-timer, a weekend warrior, or if you're not actively drinking and consuming the water, that you need that level of protection. So this is what we have, but I am not currently using the HydroPure inserts. So I'm going to link below the inserts that I use. I get them from Amazon. So coming in first, I have the 10 micron. It's just that kind of cloth tight cylinder. So again, this is removing all of the main contaminants, the rust, the sand, the silt, the junk, so that I'm not clogging up my other filters, the charcoal, things like that. So now my middle filter, which then steps up, that first one was the 2.5 by 10. The middle fat filter is the 4.5 by 10. And no matter what system you have, whether you go and buy the housings for the AquaPure or the different brands that are out there, Pentac, whatever you decide that you want to get, they're universal. Any 4.5 no-name filter is going to fit in this and work just fine. So this one, like I said, is a charcoal one. It has a pass-through of 10 gallons per minute, but it only has a 25 micron filtration, which is fine because, as I explained, I'm not looking for this to be my filter. I want this to be the carbon block, and I get more carbon if I'm using less filtration. It's just how it is. The more filtration you have, the less carbon they can fit in that same that same area. So that's fine for me. I have a 10 micron coming in and I have a 1 micron going out. I do not need my charcoal filter to be a filter. So then moving on, I have the 4.5 by 10 inch 1 micron sediment filter. And then from there, it goes back out through my pressure regulator, which will step down. I've never encountered a campground yet that was over 50 psi, but it, you know, if Lord willing, I ever be blessed to find one that has decent water pressure, this will limit it to 55 psi. There are concerns in especially the new rigs that are just using polypropylene or PEX, that anything above, say, 60 psi, 70 psi, you run the risk of blowing apart some of your compression fittings, things like that. So this is the little unit I have. I had the fancy ones that all the you know, the full-time RVers have with the dial, and you can adjust it, but they never seem to last me more than a season. I got tired of spending top dollar for something that would only last one season. So I'll link this below. This is what I use. It's worked fine for me. And then from there, back down out of the filtration up into the RV with a short little hose here. I like this particular hose. I love my 0Gs, but if I had to have a piece of hose that didn't collapse and wrap up nicely, this one is nice and pliable. It's soft. It stays pliable. It doesn't get real stiff when it's cold out. There's nothing worse than trying to wrap up a hose that's stiff as a board and it doesn't really want to wrap, and now you got kinks in it. This is a nice, short, pliable hose that makes that connection from the filter to my RV perfectly. So this is the system I'm running. Regardless of what you want to do, now you don't need a 3-cartridge system. You can get a 2-cartridge system. You can use a 1-cartridge system. Whatever is best going to suit your needs and your budget, that's what you should go with. If you're doing a 1-cartridge, obviously you'd want one of the like 5 micron carbon block cartridges, or they may even come in a 1 micron. If you're doing a 2-cartridge, then, you know, maybe get the 5 micron carbon block and then send it through a 1 micron, or do your 5 micron carbon block with a 5 or 10 micron pre-filter. You know, and then with the 3, you have the luxury of having all 3. You have your pre-filter, your carbon, and then your final sediment going out. So build it on what works for you. Build it on what works for your needs, how often you camp, how long you camp. All this plays into a factor. We are mostly weekend warriors. We do take a couple big trips each year, but I just understand that the water coming into our camper typically is bad. Not only is it not great for us to consume, but we're showering with it, and it's in our system, it's in our pipes, it's in our water heaters. So you get something that's full of rust and full of different corrosive materials, and now it's in your water heater, rotting your tank from the inside out. These are all things you have to consider when you're really thinking about the importance of water filtration. So I hope this kind of gave you some insight and a little, without boring you too much here. And so yeah, I'm going to get off this, and you guys have a great spring. Spring has sprung here in South Jersey. The leaves are starting to come out. It's actually, I'm recording this, it's Easter Day. So if anybody's watching this today when I put it up tonight, happy Easter. And we're looking forward to get out there. We got the Smoky Mountains in just a couple of weeks. Very excited to make that content for you. And have a great day.